Very good. Okay.
Is it recording?
It's recording.
Yep. Thanks,
All right.
thanks,
Yeah.
Bubsy.
Yep.
No problem.
Don't worry, you'll edit this part out.
Yeah, I got you.
Well, it's just gonna be like a movie one. Hopefully, it won't be too much work.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
All right.
just let me know whenever you guys are done. I'll come back.
All right.
Gotcha,
Night-
boss.
Good night, Nathan.
Good night, co-hosts. There are more of us besides us two.
It's not true.
Promise.
Joel dies. Welcome to effing movie podcast. This does look a little weird on a video game review, huh?
Kind of does.
A little weird. Okay, welcome to the effing video game podcast, our special one-off episode because The Last of Us is super hot. We have opinions on it. Shocker. If this is for whatever reason your first time tuning into this channel, I'm your host Dylan Camacho. Today with me is Price Bell.
I'm a host too.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah, sure.
And yeah, this channel primarily does movie reviews, but strangely enough, Price insisted that I had to do a Last of Us review, so here we are in a hot, sweaty dungeon doing a review of Last of Us.
Well, I mean, I was wanting to get it out there. I feel like maybe we'll see how this goes. Maybe this could be like a regular thing because both him and I game have similar-ish opinions, but I'm sure we'll be yelling at each other at some point. You know, you love it, you hate it, that kind of thing.
If you tune in for the rest of our stuff, if you just don't like Price by halfway through the review, we have a whole channel of content for you.
Especially our last review where we're wearing these outfits. Yeah, I get a lot of hate in that one.
That's great. Go check that out whenever that comes up. That is the Little Prince review, but we're not talking about the Little Prince. We're talking about The Last of Us 2, and let's just get into it. So, in a strange turn of events, I guess I'll let you summarize, Price. Let's start
All right. So we're picking up about 4 years after the events of the first one. Again, this is full spoilers for everything we do.
Super
because
spoiler.
I'm sure that's gonna be in the title because he spoiled the biggest thing like at the very beginning.
Happens in the first hour. I don't feel bad about it.
That's true. And you probably know by now, the internet has been irate for the past week.
If you don't know, I'm sorry, but if it helps, it doesn't. Well, I guess it does have an impact, but it sort of doesn't have an impact.
yeah.
And that's kind of where we're going to be talking, I guess, starting off. But go ahead and summarize the just beginning.
All right, let's hit it. So the beginning starts with Ellie. You basically just start as her waking up after this night that you don't really know what happened unless you watch the E3 trailer, which is gorgeous, by the way.
Super pretty.
Oh, yeah. But that's on par. You'll hear it the whole time.
Yeah.
What happens after that night, then it basically goes into the story. She's living in Jackson at this point. Everything's happy-go-lucky, that kind of thing. Goes out. They go out on a patrol, and then Joel and Tommy go out on patrol. You're not with Joel, which is a very big difference from the first one because, of course, that's the whole point of the first one.
Centered around Joel.
Yeah. And then in the very first, 3 or 4 hours, you're also thrust into this character named Abby. And you're like, all right, well, it's kind of like the tutorial section. We're getting to meet a few new characters. Probably not going to be important, right? Definitely what I was thinking when I watched it, or played it for the first time.
Boy, you'd be mistaken.
Oh, big time. And you start playing as her for a little bit. Then you transition back to Ellie. And you eventually wind up meeting with Jesse, and who's another one of the characters. Basically, the only other characters in this story on Ellie's side that you need to remember are Jesse and Dina. That's really the only two important ones on her side.
Nobody else really sticks out or holds onto the thing. If you're a big fan of Tommy's wife,
Maria.
Yeah, I mean, she gets one scene and then you just move on out of town.
She's pretty cool. She's like, yeah, I know you're going to go out anyway. My husband went out. You can go. I'm going to let you go.
You send that stupid husband back. Typical. It sounds Texas almost in that way. But,
definitely.
Yeah, but anyway.
And then Jesse finds you and Dina out on patrol and is like, I'm only here because I can't. Tommy and Joel haven't checked in. They haven't checked in on their patrol. You go out looking for him, try to find him. Ellie, they all split up to try to find him. Ellie, of course, is the one who finds him. It's not Dina or Jesse. That wouldn't be interesting.
Nope.
And you go down there. You go rush down the stairs. You can hear Joel screaming. Don't know what's going on. She rushes in there. She opens the door, and she's just like, Joel looks like he's hurt. Well, I kind of give her credit because Joel's really messed up. He's been tortured at this point.
He's shot in the leg, and they show that. So in the little part where you're playing, not with Joel, but through Abby's perspective, you meet up with Abby's gang, and then they clearly have been there to get Joel, and they just kind of falls into their lap. So they shoot him in the leg with a shotgun, I believe.
And it's definitely a shotgun.
Yeah, and then they torture him, and that's where Ellie kind of cues in a little bit after that, and then...
Which I do like that part where Tommy and Joel rush in with Abby, and all Abby's side's playing it cool, doesn't realize what's going on, and then Tommy name drops Joel in front of them, which I still we'll get about that into that later, but seems out of character for me. And then they all tense up, and Joel's like, y'all act like you've heard of me before. And then Abby's like, we have. Pow! Blows his leg up.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ellie rushes down the stairs, sees Joel's messed up. They get her, just get her down. Abby kills Joel with a golf club, which apparently is memed and is important at this point.
Yeah.
And
Of all the sports to kill him with, you get him with a golf club.
golf club. It was handy, I guess, because she just pulls it out of the bag.
Yeah.
And they wind up letting you go for some reason, which plays into the theme of the game. But anyway, do you want to go from here, or do you want to just briefly do the rest?
I want to sit in the beginning part, right? So
There is a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about with them deciding, because I think a lot of the reason you're probably tuning into any Last of Us reviews starting off is how do we feel about not only the game, but the fact that they should kill off Joel right off the bat. And honestly, I ended up loving it by the time it's said and done. Whenever it first happened, I'm like, okay, that's a gut punch, and that's frustrating, because I love Joel from Last of Us 1. Joel is the main character with Ellie during that whole time.
Why do you love him, though?
So, all right, it's very much projection, all things considered, because I love that The Last of Us 2 tells Joel's story without actually having Joel really tell the story for you. And we'll get into that. But, so in Last of Us 1, you get essentially a redemption arc for Joel. You only know that he's kind of a bad guy, but you don't really get that perception because the first impression of him from Last of Us 1, if for whatever reason you haven't played it and you played 2, why are you here? But from the first one, right off the bat, you're introduced to him being a single dad, and his daughter gets killed during the whole breakout. And then from there, he's just like this grizzled dude, and as you're playing with Ellie throughout the whole game, you get a feeling that he's really not a great dude, and he's done a lot of pretty messed up stuff. Queuing into The Last of Us 2, which we'll get there. But the reason why I like Joel in all this perspective is he plays this great father figure. It's just good to see it's good to see a villain or just a guy to transition and be redeemed and have this nice redeeming thing, going from clearly a gruff old person who didn't want to do the job to be this loving father and taking that part in. And maybe it's me and my age, and I've worked with kids, and I've said, I just see that part of Joel as this good redeeming father character, even if I know that there's plenty of Joel's background that is sketchy and murderous and bad, and even at the end of Last of Us 1, he goes on kind of a killing spree. Not that I'm not saying it's not validated, but that's going to be a big question as morality throughout both of these games.
Right.
But Joel's just lovable. You love him because of his relationship with Ellie, and I think that's your big connection to it. So when you tell me that at the beginning of the one you kill the main character from the last game, I mean, objectively, him and Ellie are, as revenge fuel for Ellie to drive the plot for the rest of the thing, that's when you kind of get me on board. I'm like, okay, I hate the idea of Joel dying because that means I get less Joel, which sucks for me because I love Joel and Ellie banter. But if you told me you need a really good reason to feel all of this, take all rational thinking, all of that out, it's just pure draw, riven emotion, rampage, killing Joel's a pretty damn good reason to do that.
So my thoughts on initial, as soon as it happened, after when Abby raised that golf club to do that final blow, I was like, maybe they won't. Maybe she'll hold off. I don't know this character, but they're wanting me to sympathize with her, and she goes down, and I do like how it's played. Like Ellie just zones out and just screaming, can't hear anything else going on. But my gut on that was first I was like, I can't believe they did that. I wish that they didn't. But then I thought, well, this is Naughty Dog, and I have liked their games for a long time, and they have not really made a decision that I haven't agreed with, so I'm going to give them the benefit of a doubt. Because it's 2 hours into the game, and there's a lot more to go. Nothing much has happened until then, and I was ready to give them a chance because I was expecting them to pull it off, use that death meaningfully, because again, I was really upset that Joel wasn't going to be playing into the game, just for the fact that chemistry between him and Ellie is just so fun to watch and listen to, which is, I'll say later, but their connection is really what drives this game for me still, even though he's not in it much. I mean, everybody's beating it to death a lot about the museum scene, about how that's amazing. Honestly, my favorite scene is still, we'll get into it later, is the last scene that actually is shown, where he's playing the guitar on the porch and Ellie comes up. The vocal, I selfishly still am upset about Joel dying because Troy Baker doesn't get to do more in this game.
Yeah.
Because holy crap, he crushes it. He is easily the best voice actor in the game. That scene, which I'll go into more detail later, got me. I was that got me because I felt where Joel's coming from, everything he's done. and how it all plays back on him, and it was done extremely well. And Joel's death was the impetus for everything in this game happening. Every death is because of Joel dying. Every action is because of Joel dying. Every decision that is made is because of Joel dying.
You don't really get a better core concept to drive the whole plot of this game than that.
100%.
But also Joel dies, and we're like, damn it, no, I wanted more. I wanted more scenes. And it sounds stupid, because you're like, all right, in reality, if they made a game of just Joel and Ellie, not like Last of Us 1, like doing adventures, but literally just them hanging out in suburbia for 4 years, like if they did the middle part, which I'll get into the idea of a 2 before this being a 3. I think, honestly, this could have been a 3, but we'll get there. But, yeah, the idea that we just get them hanging out and chilling for a while, I'd get the DLC of that, at least. I don't know if I'd play a full game of it, but... Let's start to move on, right? So we get introduced to Abby and their whole little posse of gang that has just a revenge on the mind. And I guess we can go ahead and spoil why they ever got revenge going on. We can get that part in the summary because we're going to start hopping in. So Joel dies. Ellie's like, all right, well, and they get an idea where they're from. Tommy says, oh, yeah, I think they're from Seattle or whatever. So they're going to go to Seattle. And that's when the John Wick episode Ellie starts. For all of that.
Great way to put it.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, that is a fantastic way to put it. It's not a puppy, it's Joel.
It's Joel, which I didn't think would be as bad, but yeah, it's actually as bad.
A puppy is way more sympathetic than Joel, though.
Fair. So anyway, then this is where the arc goes. It goes, Ellie spends 3 days in Seattle, meticulously going... Oh, yeah, 4. It wraps on 3. Right. So 3 to 4 days in Seattle, meticulously getting to Abby, killing friends, going through, dealing with all the people there. There's 2 organizations.
The WLF and the Scars.
Which
are apparently extremely important.
Yeah, very, very important because they needed to contribute a whole point of view and half of the game with it, which we'll get there for Abby, right? So Abby is the eyes of the whole world around you. Ellie's is the world of her own perspective. Hers is a straight arrow through from start to finish on just her story. Abby's view is the whole world subjectively, I guess, in a way. I mean, technically you get her perspective on things. But that's a good side of playing both sides, because you get this conflict between the Wolves and the Scars. These are both of, like, the warring organizations in the Seattle area. As far as world building, because this is something I feel like is neglected a lot of times, I love what Naughty Dog does in this, because it doesn't... Although it could be very cookie-cutter in saying, well, they kind of do that in Last of Us 1. I mean, they give you the Fireflies, and they kind of just give you everybody else. And you could say objectively that those are 2 warring factions, so to speak, because people either loved them or hated the Fireflies.
Oh, yeah.
In this one, I love that they gave us 2 conflicting point of views, but they did, in what we call the Star Wars term, the Lost Stars point of view. So you give us one person from one side, one person from the other side, and you mash them together. It's not an original concept by any means, but I think it's executed very well. To a point. The problem is they make us see through Abby's perspective, and so far they introduced us with Abby with being just a bulky lady who has trouble with a guy that's in her group, and then she kills Joel. So there's not really a lot you love about Abby when you're first starting out, and this is kind of where I think we'll come back to Ellie, because Ellie's stuff is kind of more important, but I want to touch on Abby, and then we'll kind of meet up at the end.
Because you get, like, Ellie, Abby, little bit of Ellie.
Yeah, so if you haven't played the game, you get Ellie's shit for, like, 3 days worth of play, right? You feel like, okay, maybe this is a shorter game, but I'm actually getting through it. I mean, it feels chunky, it didn't feel short or rushed or anything like that. Climax point, and let's reset it all the way back to the beginning, and now we're going through it from Abby's perspective.
And what's even worse is that she has the gun on Ellie, and then it cuts to black.
But to be fair, if that's not the most Last of Us thing to do, I mean, think, Last of Us 1 ends on Joel lying to Ellie.
But it's not like a climax, like our character could die. I was ready. After I got to this point, it was like midnight, and I was like, all right, I'm Abby now, maybe for an hour or 2, and then we'll get back to it. And I kept playing. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm too tired. I can't handle this. Apparently, I'm here for a while.
I won't lie. Whenever the Abby part started, I was just like, all right, let's just fly through this. I wasn't... For Ellie, you better believe I'm looking after my girl. I look in every cabinet, get every resource. You got every pill that you could get, every upgrade you could get. Abby, for like the first hour and a half, I'm just chugging along, just looking like the Punisher, right? Just plowing through things, dying way more than I should because I didn't get any health packs. I'm not crafting, I'm not doing any of that stuff. Surely it'll be done soon, right? And then I realized I'm in for the long haul for Abby.
Mine was when, like, I started getting those training manuals where, like, new upgrade paths were unlocked. I was like, no.
I'm actually doing... Oh, God, yeah. The beginning when you start playing as Abby, you're like... you already kind of get what they're trying to do pretty quickly, right? So you're already in, like, she wakes up. It's after a flashback with her dad, and they explain why the group wants to kill Joel to begin with. Is because they were old Fireflies. Abby's dad was the doctor who was going to work on Ellie, who Joel kills because they were going to kill Ellie. And then we get into the morality conversation of it. So I think this is as good a time as any to bring that part up.
Yeah.
So there's a morality dynamic where it's really heavily leaning on the world saying, okay, if this person may be a hero from you because you played this game from Joel and Ellie's perspective, but when you look at it subjectively and from another person's perspective, Joel's a villain. Like, he went in there, he killed a bunch of Fireflies, and if it was my playthrough, like, every single one of them. Like, flamethrowers, explosives. I had fun doing it, too. But then we get into the doctor's office, and bro, I didn't even wait for him to say a word. I blasted him immediately. In the cutscene, I'm like, well, that's not my canon, but I'll allow it. So the doctor tries to stop him because the doctor objectively has a cure that could save all of humanity from the infection. And then Joel kills him. From anybody else's perspective, that girl lost her dad because Joel got mad that they were going to kill the kid who possibly was going to be on board with it. And a big thing with Ellie is she always felt she needed to do more. And honestly, turn back the clock, she probably does say, yeah, let's do it. Ellie probably would accept
Oh,
those
yeah,
terms.
she would.
Yeah.
But why they didn't ask in the first one, I can kind of understand them doing it not in the first one. I was okay with it because the Fireflies are seen as kind of like a terrorist organization that are going to do it because, like...
They're going to do it regardless.
Yeah, but in this one, they made more of an issue with the fact that, like, Ellie didn't have a choice. And, like... It kind of got to me because I was thinking, like, Ellie, they didn't give you a choice on whether or not you
They were just
going to
murder you and...
with no agency. Like, you didn't know that was going to be your last day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they did, I know Ellie would have said yes. She would have said yes 100%. But they didn't even ask her, and that didn't, like, weigh on Ellie's mind at all. That, like, maybe those guys weren't so good. Maybe they were just going to use the vaccine for their guys and become, like, the new government or something in their own world.
Yeah, and the Fireflies... They're big, ambitious people. I don't see themselves having something so as miraculous as the cure to the infection without using that to their advantage about several times over.
Yeah.
Especially at the point they were then. They were already beat up and tore them, but that's Last of Us 1. So all of that is to say the Fireflies probably aren't the coolest dudes either. But if you're looking at it from Abby's perspective, they're this gang of unit that's been holding the whole world together, it feels like, from their side of view. And their main doctor and father just died, and everybody's pretty upset about it. It caused the whole collapse of the Fireflies. So then you get left with nothing, all because Joel killed your dad. So when Abby goes on this rant and revenge and gets her group together to go kill Joel, then you're like, okay, I get it. I still don't like Abby more for it. And I think that's where the game is, its biggest weakness is that it does the Abby too strong as a villain, I guess is the best way to say it, right? Like, they don't... I think you really needed to give Abby time to breathe as a character before making her be the ultimate antagonist to this whole series, no matter what way you look at it. Objectively, I would say this. If I'm whatever, an editor or a game timer or a person who does the game or whatever, and I'm saying, okay, so 2, I don't think they should go anything past 2. I think at this point they end on 2 and they don't do any more Last of Us. That's my opinion on it.
I want another one.
Listen, I love the game, I love the series, but narratively speaking, leave it where it is because I think you can push the world, you can do a lot of different things, but I think you need to leave these characters be.
Oh, yeah, I don't want another Ellie.
Right. So now if we're sticking with these characters, I would say trilogy. Let's do now the second game. I'll meet you halfway. There's like Dylan. There's 4 years where they're living in Jackson doing jack shit and going on patrols. Fair. But let's say that wasn't the case. Let's say that there's an adventure and you cross Abby in and they start intersecting and maybe she hangs out with Ellie or something for a little while. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't see Joel at all. Ellie has plenty of reasons to hate Joel and go off. They explain that in these flashbacks. During this time, it's not all sunshine and roses with Ellie and Joel. She finds out that Joel killed the guy and didn't give her choice to die and help herself for all of humanity. And there's a lot of friction there. And I think there's a whole... You could, make a plot, whatever. You just put another faction in there. That's what the smart thing is.
Yeah, that's what this one does.
Yeah, this one gave us 2 factions. Maybe you go 1.5 factions in the second one. But you give conflict there. Maybe you give a little bit of that parallel things if you want. Maybe you don't. I don't care. But you put Abby in and you start incorporating her to see that she's a likable character. Because even by the very end of this game, I'm like, okay, I'm a little better with Abby because she gets her side. But I still kind of wanted Ellie to kill her, even on the last run. Even on the last fight, I'm like, you could do it, Ellie. Go on. I mean, it's valid, and I'm like, nah, I'm missing the point. But
Because she, like, even at the end of all of Abby's stuff that we're doing with her, and we get to the point where, like, we go back to the cut to black or whatever, and they get in that fight. Dina comes up at the end of the fight, and Abby just beats the crap out of her, of course.
Abby's a monster.
And then Ellie's like, wait, she's pregnant. And then Abby's,
Good.
Yeah, she says,
Abby
good.
is so hard to redeem only through Lev. Who? Okay, we haven't talked about Lev so far,
Wait,
so we probably
before we
should
get
talk
too
about
much
that.
into Lev and the scars, I want to go back to the morality thing first, because that's the whole point of Abby's like 12-hour go is to see the other side, and as I hope we get into later, is the fat fit perfectly thin or whatever. I messed up too. I don't care.
Yeah, it's hard to do on the spot, huh?
Yes, it is. But like all I wanted from her was the part that actually like got to me the most and was like, all right, this is all I want from her story is with the doctor. Because like that gave me all the justification I needed for her. It gave me like background for her and some of her friends as well. Not like Manny and like some of the other ones, but it gave us Owen, who is the most important one of her friends, and it gave us like that connection that we needed with them, and that's all we needed from them. That's it. That's all I wanted from them. I didn't want this 12-hour go of like Abby going out and finding the factions, because I didn't care about the factions. I cared about the core dynamic that was presented to us in the first one, which is Ellie and Joel in that world. Mm-hmm. That's the world I care about. That Abby world, I've played through this game twice in less than 2 weeks, and the second time through, I just kind of tried going through Abby's part because I just didn't care. I didn't care about her. I didn't care about her world. Didn't care about her friends. None of them.
And Abby is objectively like the worst character in her world too. Like not only because you hate her for killing Joel and all of that, but I mean Manny, who spit on Joel's body, and I hate him for it. He called him Bendejo. I always remember that, Manny.
Yep.
But Manny is kind of charming as the game goes along. You get moments where they're talking about sitting around watching.
He was going to cap Ellie too, though.
Oh, he was definitely going to kill Ellie. Yeah, he was going to kill Ellie, and then that one guy who was definitely redeemable, he died terribly. Not Owen. The guy with the hat.
No, it was Owen. Owen's the one who stopped him.
No, Owen's the one who stops him. So it's all right. So you have Benny. All right, this is a weird point for us to argue, but whatever. We're gonna argue it here in the point. So you have Benny, Bendejo. All right, let's kill. Let's get. Yeah, that's Manny, right? So then he goes up. Owen tries to stop him. And then the other guy's like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. That chump, the guy with the hat.
The guy got cut?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember his name.
Yeah, whatever.
He's one of the not important ones. Like, you get one speaking line to him if you go up to him in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
He's not important.
So here's the kicker on that. He is about the only other worse character in this group than Abby. And if that's the bar, it's not really saying much. Because even Owen kind of sucks. Like, I don't think he's particularly redeemable. I think he has these moments where he's trying to be quirky overall. He, just revamps an aquarium and stuff, which is, okay, kind of neat. But,
they try making him to be the most relatable. Like, Abby's not as good as Owen. And they're really trying to force you into, like, oh, look what Owen did with these cute animals in the aquarium. He cares for these paintings on the wall that this little kid did.
He's a romantic, but
he's still done bad stuff, too.
But he's pretty douchey still. Like, I mean, he has this girlfriend, so, I mean, obviously he had a romantic thing with Abby that fell through, and then he ends up hooking up with Mel. And then he gets her pregnant, and then he's terrible to her, like, for pretty much the whole time. Like, they come back, they're all trauma-shocked after killing Joel, and then he stays away from her, and then he hooks up with Abby at one point. Weird scene. And,
but you see some boob for some reason? I'm like, why?
Yeah, Naughty Dog had it animated. They said, why not? It's already there. So, let's just earn a hard R rating, I guess. Hard M. But all that being said is that most of the gang is pretty irredeemable. You got Mel, who's pregnant, who's just kind of annoying.
Why do they send her out on patrol?
Stupid idea. They have Manny, who
so dumb.
I hate him for spitting on him, but he's talking about watching like anime and stuff like that.
Mentions Princess Mononoke.
Yeah, mentions a Ghibli film in the middle of the thing, and talks about just hanging out with it. And just
we've reviewed that, by the way. Go check it out.
Check it out on this channel.
Really highly rated movie. We liked it, believe it or not.
Yeah, I really like that one. But yeah, I mean, overall, Manny is like likable. He gets downed by a sniper. That's a sweet scene.
Tommy.
Yeah. So it's all weird. The whole gang is not particularly likable as a whole, and I really think you need somebody there to be not necessarily like overwhelmingly likable, but something just for you to ground to. And at the very least, try to make that Abby. But yeah, Owen doesn't stick the landing for me.
No, he doesn't. But that's what he was for.
For sure.
Like, you're wanting somebody to actually stick the landing. And again, I don't think Owen did, because he talks about terrible things he's done, and like he's wanting redemption too. But he's done terrible stuff too.
And he continues to keep doing terrible stuff, so it doesn't really make him a great character. But all of that is to say, so we're talking in the morality of the things, and this is where we get into. Let's go back to the stories a little bit, because I think that's important, because we've been on the characters for a minute. All right, so we get that climax. Abby comes and finds the gang after Ellie's mowed down like most of Abby's friends at this point, or they've died from zombies or just whatever things or something like that. Mostly Ellie though, which is sweet.
Oh yeah, when you go into that one like the army tent and it shows all the bodies.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah,
Oh,
that was me.
I did that. I remember that one. There shouldn't be any parts of that. That was an explosive arrow, and those things are delightful.
Oh yeah, they are.
Oh man, yeah. So you get to this climax. Abby domes Jesse. There we go. I keep thinking Andrew. Whatever. So domes Jesse, the Asian friend. Dina's about to get it. They
Which
pick a fight.
with Jesse and Manny, and they cap them really quickly, like just spur of the moment, like action. And again with Yara in Abby's portion,
Yeah.
I like that because I feel like that's like they're going for realism here, and
It didn't feel like a movie death.
it didn't feel like
Right.
a movie death. It didn't feel like something over exaggerated, like that wouldn't happen. Like Abby wasn't cradling Manny in her arms, like, oh, I'm so sad. She like was like, I don't know how to process this right now.
Yeah.
And just goes off and just
Full on trauma trigger from that one, which says so much about the world. They're constantly reminding you that this is a grounded real world, and the people, not everybody's great, and in this world specifically, everybody's fucked over somebody.
And you can die at any moment.
Right, like, yeah, so having that grounded and stay throughout the theme, I think they nail that part throughout the whole game, is they never let any other character be more important than really Abby and Ellie in this whole thing, barring Lev for a little bit.
Yeah.
Lev, in case you don't know for whatever reason, is also a Scar kid from the other side of the faction who ends up being Abby's redeeming prospect throughout this whole story. So she ends up meeting up with him and his sister, her and her sister rather, sorry, because there's a girl in that one.
Yeah.
It leaves that
how,
ambiguous.
how did you feel about the Lev, transitioning from Lily being trans, that kind of thing?
I was fine with it.
I was too.
At first, when they mentioned it, I honestly didn't think much of it. I thought that he could have just been a boy, that they were gonna, because he uses the term, oh, I was gonna go be oh gosh, I forget it now. It's not like whatever, like somebody's princess or wife or something like that.
Oh, he. Oh,
Lev. They.
Lev
For
was
better
going
or
to
worse.
be a wife to one of the elders.
Right.
Which is, yeah,
And
you can't be a soldier.
Yeah, honestly, at first thing I was just like, oh, well, I mean, it's just going to be a boy that's going to go be a wife. And it didn't really click to me until I was talking with a buddy about it later. I'm like, oh, I'm stupid. Yeah, I guess that is the case. And that's why they threw a fit about them cutting the hair, because he could have...
Yeah.
They were going to be a warrior. I'm going to say she, but I don't know the pronoun choice, so they is the safe word for that one. Anyway, so that aside, so Lev goes on to be... they add this kind of gender thing into it, which, I mean, I guess it's fine. It doesn't take away from the game. It's subtle, I think, overall.
Yeah, it's not shoved in your face by any means.
Right.
Like J.K. Rowling could not be too upset about this. It is
Right.
not shoved in your face. It's just said in passing. And even, there's a fight where they called Lev Lily. And then after the fight, Lev's like, you heard what they called me, right? And I was like, yeah. And then Lev's like, do you want to talk about it? She said, nah.
Nah.
And I'm like, that's good. I
respect-
like that.
I think that says that there's a lot more to that character than the gender thing, and that just happens to be a fact, which I think is
Yep.
fine. I mean, you're going to be in a world full of things where, not everybody's going to be lined up perfect with it.
Yep.
But Lev does exactly what Ellie does for Joel, to Abby.
humanizes
right,
him
it's the
again.
humanizing factor, right? You only really appreciate Abby because of their relationship with Lev. Lev is great. I mean, Lev is just like this wonderful kid character who's going around, who has this pseudo-parent figure who is not great. I mean, it's just Last of Us 1 through and through. And Lev is excellent, but in the way that Joel connects with Abby, I don't feel the same way about Abby to Lev. I think that there's a connection there, and Abby cares for this kid, but Abby is truly trying to redeem herself through that, and it felt much less organic than Joel did with Ellie. Joel and Ellie, it grew over time. From the beginning, it didn't feel like he was going to redeem himself through Ellie. It was more so this reluctant hero that finally learns to love it over time.
Because he's very jaded at the beginning of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
He is over everything.
He didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to be a part of it at all. Abby, from pretty much the beginning...
She is gung-ho. She is just like, I have to redeem myself somehow. I'm a terrible person. Why she realized it at this moment, I don't know, because she's been trying to kill Joel, as seen through the flashbacks, since it happened.
Yeah.
So
pretty much
why would...
day one.
I don't get why this is the thing. Like, I guess because they saved her. Because I remember, she's choking in that awesome scene, which that's one of the other highlights.
That's another
of the
E3 scene, but man, it looks super good in this game. That whole dark part where Abby gets captured by the scars and they're torturing her, and then they get rescued by Lev and her sister, and it's just this awesome scenes moving forward. Yeah, that part is great. That is the part where I started enjoying being Abby, right?
Exactly the same.
And this is the thing. I have to remember that we're playing a video game, and this is when I get absorbed into it. Up until then, you're just Army Commando, mowing down scars, G.I. Abby, going on mowing down people, just having a great old time. You get a dog, which is the other most redeeming part of it. Again, a John Wick reference. But oh gosh, speaking of, that dog doesn't make it either. Damn it, Ellie. So
No.
everybody's a villain. So, and then we go into this. whole hostage scene, and then you start to see the character shift, and you start reading the notes from Ellie's perspective, which I think does a great job of crossing over, right? The small little times this Venn diagram of Abby and Abby and Ellie touch base, right? It's the little tiny things, the little hints between the organizations, the little notes that you read that you suddenly get a little bit more of on Abby's side. It's all of that, and I think it does such a great job in retrospect. On playthrough, I was just like, oh yeah, I think I read about that in Ellie's chapter, whatever. Like, later, as soon as you get the whole big picture, you're like, okay, that really did add some, like, gravitas to the whole world building aspect, and I thought that was great.
Mm-hmm.
From the point forward where Abby starts being redeemed through Lev,
and Yara,
yeah. I mean, Yara's great throughout that whole time too, and Abby's clearly trying to rescue it. She's trying to fight this fate that she's trying not to be this terrible person, because I think she has a moment of clarity. Not that she's not trying to be a better person, because even with Owen, she still like has sex with him, knowing that Mel's pregnant and doing all that, and she's still like making terrible decisions. But I think for a split second, she sits there and says, "What is the way for me to not be selfish, but also try to be a good person, or to be selfish but also try to be a good person at the same time?" And that duality is a little unbalanced for my taste, just because Abby just never really does enough to really go over the top justified for me.
I feel like the moment that they want you to believe that she makes that decision where, like, I'm going to be a good person is after her and Owen have sex because they're laying in bed, and she thinks...
Well, thank God Abby cuddles. If she had just left afterwards, that would have made her a terrible person.
I didn't really believe that. Maybe she felt that, like, her having sex with Owen was like, oh, man, I've gone too far on being terrible. But I don't know, maybe because she got to sit and think for a second about, like, I almost died, and...
To be fair, Abby is
had that.
pretty much on the ground running from the moment we get her onwards. Like,
Yeah.
she's always meeting her friends right before they all die, or right when they die.
You're right.
She's constantly in a fight or something, and she's with this struggle with the organizations, and starting to think that her system and her belief thing... I think this is where I actually found the really good purpose on the organizations, right? It was to give Abby the purpose on saying, maybe the world isn't how I've always seen it. I need to see it from a different perspective, and it's good for her because she's only seen it from the Fireflies' perspective, and then once the Fireflies were gone, she just saw it from the Wolves' perspective. She just traded that in. She never really thought I should think differently on the situation. And until you get Lev, until you get the whole Scars versus Wolves thing, and she starts defecting against the Wolves and essentially doing her own thing for honest, good, selfish reasons for the first time in her life, I think she starts to see, wow, okay, maybe the world's a little bit more than what I've been giving credit for.
Do you think that she was, like, feeling more of the Scars mentality at that point? Because I don't. Because I feel like she still is,
I don't
like,
think she was pro-Scars.
You all are kind of crazy. But you kids, I get behind.
She still sees the cult aspect behind it, but she sees how somebody can be brainwashed, and I think she gets that, being a kid who's been in an organization her whole life. I mean, if she wasn't a Firefly, she was a wolf, so she's like, okay, Lev is just me, but a little bit more woke, if we're being totally honest. Like, we're finally questioning the purpose of everything. But this is going to go on for a while, so let's go ahead and start to wrap up towards the tail end of the game.
Well, you got to the climax. Well, you got to where Jesse got shot.
Jesse gets shot. Yeah, we went on a tangent. So Jesse gets shot. Ellie and Abby fight. I let Abby die like 12 times.
I did too.
Whatever. Let the game in. Roll credits.
I saw Ellie use that machete like a million times to Abby's side.
Yeah, it was a great... I will say, the most fun you can have with Abby is finding out all the interesting ways you can kill her when you're walking on top of the buildings. Right off.
Which is funny to talk about, but at the moment, like, that's not what Naughty Dog wants.
No.
They're wanting you to feel sympathy for this character, and I don't know if I held as much hatred for her as Dylan does, but I still didn't like her either. I just didn't like her. I didn't want her to live. I wanted to kill her repeatedly. I didn't think she was redeemable.
It was a difference between hating her and then kind of loving to hate her a little bit. Like, it was almost like I was in on a joke after a while. But then so after that first fight occurs, Abby pieces out and again says, all right, don't let me see you again, essentially doing what she did back in Jackson.
Talking about after the Abby-Ellie fight.
Yeah, after the Abby-Ellie fight.
But it is important to know she let Dina live because of Lev.
Yeah, Lev comes in and says, what the fuck are you doing? And Abby's
like, calm down.
No, you're right, Lev. Sorry, I wasn't thinking again. I was doing Abby stuff. Yeah.
I was being me.
Yeah, I was doing all the terrible things that I normally do when I'm left to my own devices. You're right, Lev. So then Lev and Abby go off to the Firefly resort place in like San Diego or something like that, and that goes poorly for them. And
yes, it does.
Ellie has this wonderful, perfect ending, almost, with Dina. They have this lesbian child because Dina got pregnant through Jesse,
Jesse.
and then Jesse gets blown away. So they have this kid. They're on the farm in like who knows where, Oklahoma, I guess. I don't know. Let's just say Oklahoma. I don't know for sure. They have this farm, but then Ellie's clearly got this PTSD from the whole thing, and just feels that can't be unresolved. Tommy comes out and says, "You were supposed to do it. You didn't do it. What the fuck?" And then he's like, "I found a lead. Found them out here." And
Why do you think that he held so much? Okay, this will wrap back into Tommy. I want to have a little Tommy discussion because I said earlier.
Tommy's important.
So, do you feel like he would have wrapping back to the beginning because it is important because it sets off the chain for the whole story? Do you feel like Tommy letting slip who they are and their names? Do you think he really would have done that? Do you think he would have let his guard down that much?
For this specific moment, I'm gonna say yes, and that's only because I think that they're on this adrenaline high. They just fought to the with their lives with this character. They just rushed by a whole bunch of infected, and literally it's just the three of them. And the only reason they all survive is because all three work together. I mean, objectively, Joel probably could have, and Tommy could have probably did it fine without having to save Abby and do all that. But I think Abby contributed enough where they probably felt grateful, right? So at this point, there's that moment where you're like, oh, we just saved all each other's lives. What a time to be survivors in this apocalypse, right, Joel? I think it's a very easy slip of the tongue for that way because it's all lost in the moment.
But think about how long this has been going on. It's like 20 years, 18. I mean, Ellie has grown up through all this going on. So that
plus you're also in your own backyard too. They are technically in Jackson. If they're gonna feel safe, sure, they're in that exact moment the least safe they're possibly going to be. They're surrounded.
Yeah,
in a room
they're
full
in their
of strangers.
backyard.
But,
people they don't know.
But you think, oh, we're just on the patrol. We just saved these guys' life. Of course they're going to be fine with us. They're helping them. They're trying to be that good community. And I think that tells, again, it goes back to the story of the character that they want to be versus the character who they are. And I think Tommy does a great job of that too, because I think even right here, he's been living this good life for so long that he's trying to be this practicing good shepherd. And then he would make that kind of slip as that Tommy. But as soon as Joel dies, he goes, he doesn't even tell Ellie he's going to do this mission solo. And then from that point forward, he's back to old Tommy, right? He's that Tommy who wants to kill everybody, redeem his brother, get revenge for his brother, rather. And even whenever he comes back to the farm, kind of where I was talking on the series part, which kind of kicks Ellie off into that last run again to go kill Abby. But even when he goes back to that, I didn't think I bought it at first until I thought back on it. And I'm like, well, no, he gave up that Good Shepherd way after Joel died. And he said, you know what? He came back and he clearly split with his wife and all of that was occurring. And you can already kind of imagine how his life goes. He's just Ellie. He's just traumatized. He probably isolated. He stayed on his own. He hated himself for not being able to finish the job. And Ellie's the only way he can do that, so he's obsessed with Ellie doing it now. He goes out there as soon as he finds a lead and says, you need to go do this because I can't.
You made a really good point about Tommy. I never thought about that way because even in The Last of Us 1, you see Tommy as with this group of people that he has been with. It seems like for a little while because, he has a wife with the leader of the organization. So he's been there with him for a while. He hasn't been through the hard knocks that Joel and them have. Granted, I'm not sure how long the Joel Ellie story goes on, but that would make you seriously jaded. So I'm super glad that Joel was not the one who gave them up.
Yeah.
If Joel was the one who said their names, I would have been very pissed at that point because I do not believe for a second he would have done that. He cares about his close group of people, who that is, like Tommy and Ellie. And he cares about them and would kill anybody for them. And he would keep them safe as much as he could, and their names are very important information.
Joel stays overly cautious the entire time, even with the little moments when flashbacks you go through a hotel with Ellie. He even says, keep your mask on because you never know. His guard never drops in all of these years.
Which is the reason I'm going to give this game a score as high as I am, is because of the Ellie-Joel dynamic you still get in this game. Especially in that scene, the hotel flashback. That was my favorite over the museum one, because the way that they dispatch the bloater, the bloater's fixing to kill Ellie, and the bloater,
I like that you have to get caught,
awful.
right?
Yeah, which I'm fine with because
I put 15 clips and I'm like, no, you've died. You have died so many ways.
And it's fixing to kill Ellie, and this is the biggest thing they've ever seen. They've seen bloaters, but they're the worst of the worst.
This is a monstrous bloater too. Right?
Yeah, and
Joel's nope.
Joel goes in melee range and is grabs the bloater and is you get off of her, and he's not immune. He's not anything, and he goes in there and saves her, and that, besides the end part, got me the most. He loves this girl and would do anything for her, which I guess we can talk about it now, is that the heartbreak that he suffers whenever he has to tell Ellie the truth about what happened sold me so much, because you know, like through Troy Baker's performance and through the motion capture they did for this, you can tell how much he cared for this girl and how much it breaks his heart.
Like him not even saying anything and just shaking his head no, because he's just like, I can't. I like literally cannot. It will break her heart and she will hate me because of it, and I don't know if I can go through that.
And she extrapolates from that of course that's what happened, because that is what happened.
To be fair, he doesn't even tell the full story either. He's like,
no.
Yeah, I also did Dome, what's her face? I forget her name. The leader of the Fireflies, who was also like, I mean, Ellie's kind of aunt. Like, it was her like mom's best friend. So I mean, Ellie does have a connection with her, and I totally don't remember her name.
And he never even said that part.
Yeah, doesn't even tell her that, which is probably better. It's already pretty bad at that point, so probably just you can skim the details a little bit.
And she's like, I can't forgive you for this.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I'm kind of frustrated at the fact that, like, you have to play this game twice to fully, like, get everything in the story, because, like, you don't understand, like, why, like, at the beginning, Ellie and Jesse are talking with each other about how, like, the night at the dance, that, like, she got mad at Joel. And, like, you're like, why is she mad at Joel? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, she's just mad at him already. Like, why? I mean, she doesn't know. And then you're like, oh, she does know. But how long has she known? And you're like, man, how long has that affected their relationship with it?
2 years. It was like 2 years prior
the 2 years
that conversation happened.
Yeah, and it's just... It's so hard, though, because you just see Joel, a man giving everything, who's been redeemed, who has this chance, and, like, his sole reason for pretty much living at this point.
Oh, yeah.
And just hates him and despises him, and he's just trying so hard. And I'm with you. Like, I think that last flashback scene, the whole wrap up with that.
Oh yeah.
I think, which it's crazy because you almost see that there's a redemption in Ellie for wanting to forgive him, and it almost feels as though like that's Ellie's like. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but it could have just even been like Ellie hoping this is how that played out. You know, I think in reality, it maybe didn't even play out that way. And I say reality for a video game. But, you know, like, yeah, I think there's the perspective that she's been saying that she didn't want to forgive him, she hated him, she did this. And maybe she did go and say, you know, but I want to forgive you. And just giving you just that little bit.
That moment is the best moment of the game for me. Because if you, like, look at Joel, like, while she's saying that, it just, like... rips him apart, because like for 2 years she has pretty much hated his guts and had nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
And he like that's his whole reason of living. That's his surrogate daughter that he loves more than anything. And like that moment when it just like crushes him and hits hard.
Yeah. But I will say overall, and we'll start to wrap up here because I feel like this is running long, but to nobody's surprise,
we haven't even talked about the compound yet.
God, all right, whatever. So I think my looking holistically at this whole game, my biggest thing that made me really appreciate and love the game compared to just liking it or possibly even hating it, because I could see where people would just get turned off by the Abby thing and don't buy into the Abby aspect and just lose sight of the whole game because they get a whole... I mean, essentially it's half the game. Like, half the game
oh, yeah,
is
it is. Easily.
a miserable character. You don't want to play it and you don't want to redeem, and even when they do redeem it, you don't really feel happy for it. But after you take all that aside, and even if you love or dislike Abby, however you feel about her, I loved how both of the characters told Joel's story. Not the future story, but you look at it, so obviously Abby plays Joel in The Last of Us 1, where I think Ellie truly does go start to finish what you probably didn't see from Joel. All the stuff that was pre-Last of Us, well, you know, between Last of Us, his daughter dying, and Last of Us when they start meeting up with Ellie, he tells her all this time, all these little stories that he used to do terrible things, and we have Ellie doing all of these terrible things going on, doing this dynamic, going on revenge, and you can almost see like Joel doing the same thing, like Joel trying to mourn and process his daughter, and he just goes into this crime life because that's what the world's fallen into, so he starts killing people because that's how you have to survive, and you hate everything and you hate the world, much like Ellie does. And in Ellie, even with the Dina thing, I think that there's a deeper connection. With Joel, he had a wife at some point, and even in Last of Us 1, he mentions, oh yeah, well, we split, I don't really like to talk about it, but you can almost even see how that played out with him with Ellie, where she has this thing where she becomes obsessed and frustrated on this revenge and she needs to give it, and she gives up her relationship to go on this. Not to saying that he had to go revenge story yet. We don't know, but you get the idea that these are both, like, Ellie is so much Joel's daughter in this story. It is so great how that portrays that story with the little flashbacks, and the museum scene, absolutely great, just heartwarming, but it's also heartbreaking because you know that it's not there, they can't have these moments again. But to see that they had this moment right before all the fallout happens, seeing Joel's story told through that perspective and getting it through Abby's side and having to connect together, and you kind of have a spiritual Joel story on that, I thought that was so brilliant. I love how that's executed throughout the whole thing.
Okay, so let's wrap up the end of it. Basically, you know, Ellie gets to the farm right after the fight, flashes forward. I don't think it even gives a day. It doesn't give a time.
It doesn't even give a time.
And,
X amount of time passes.
Ellie's in this house that Dina's always wanted out in the farm. They have a little baby together. Obviously, it's Jesse's baby, metaphorically. And they're taking care of the baby. And then, as Dylan said, Tommy comes by and is like
kill this bitch.
Yeah. Like, I know where she's at. You're going to go get her because, like, half his face pretty much got blown off by Abby.
Yeah.
They must have some amazing medical people in Jackson because, like, it was pretty close and she's a good shot.
I was pretty sure he was dead. I won't lie.
Yeah, I thought he was dead too, but it got just the side of his face.
Just nicked him.
And so has this really good scene. Ellie waking up. She can't sleep because that just keeps running through her head. Dina's like, I don't think I can put up with this again. If you leave, I don't think I can put up with it. And Ellie's just like, she doesn't say anything. She's just like, I'm sorry. Like, you can tell she's just like, I have to.
She's tied to this fate.
And
that
she's like, she's smaller. Like, I remember like when I first started playing as her, like,
oh yeah, she loses
doesn't
that
eat
weight
or anything. Yeah, she has lost a lot of weight, and you can definitely tell.
Speaking of losing weight, Abby loses some weight by the end of this game. Is wrapped up in
Crucified will do that to you.
Woo!
Crucifixion will do that.
She
to
is
you.
not as bulky, but
And you go out as Ellie. Unfortunately, you have to play as Abby again for another like 45 minutes. You go in, you get this lead that Fireflies may be around. Fireflies are around. Yay!
Maybe
All's
not.
good. Come on, Lev. Let's go out the garage door and let's go be Fireflies now. And then they get destroyed by this group you've never seen before. Get captured by them. Play as Ellie. You go through all that part, of course, because you're trailing her, trying to get her. You meet the Rattlers. They Ellie goes out. She gets in this trap, flings her into a tree, which impales her.
side. Yeah.
The two Rattlers come out. Awesome scene where like she grabs that guy, holds him in front of the clicker,
Yeah.
and she kind of gets bit and shoots the other guy. The other guy's like, "You got bit. You're not gonna live anyway." She's like, "This is nothing." And he tells her where Abby is. Because she's kind of noticeable because she's built as thick as this table.
Yeah.
And
Well, she was.
She
Less
was.
so now. Yeah.
And you go to their compound. I was very interested in the Rattlers. I know that's been said across all platforms on like all reviewers, but
Yeah, they have this weird
man.
slave trade going on where they're just picking
Yeah.
people up, and it was like they even had.
one guy tried running away, like which it starts one encounter. He's like, "I
Yeah.
won't go back," and shoots himself in the head. And you're like, "What the heck
What's
is going on here?"
And you never really get the idea of the depths of it, other than they're kind of like prisoner slaves. And you're
Yeah.
like, they never really show like what's so bad other than obviously being a prisoner slave. I mean, that's
That's pretty cool.
not selling that short. That's probably terrible, but especially in that world. But I don't know. You didn't see anything gruesome, but it does make you a little bit more curious. And I guess if you're going to tie in the potential for Last of Us 3, leave Ellie and them out of it. Whatever. Their stories are done. Don't give any more.
And then you go through the compound.
Yeah.
You're like, Abby's over there, and you have to get through there by whatever means necessary, and you start the best part in the game, which is like taking down the compound, which I wish they did more of that. Like just using like I remember in The Last of Us 1, the DLC, like you can make the infected fight the people.
Yeah,
and that's such a cool mechanic.
That's always the best part, even in 2,
Yeah.
whenever they're like, you get
when
a
they're
moment,
fighting each other.
You're like, oh, glass bottle. Look at him go. Ah.
That happens like twice
Yeah.
besides this moment because you're the one who starts that because you have to shoot their chains and they'll go off and that starts pandemonium and you can go from there. Easiest, best part, like gameplay wise.
Yeah.
Then you go through, you eventually find Abby. You find out that her and Lev tried to escape. You go to the pillars, which is basically where they have all these crucifixes up, and Abby and Lev have been out there for a while because Abby has like no muscle.
They are roughed.
And you cut them down. There's thankfully there's 2 boats there
Magically.
for them to take, 2 running boats. Abby puts Lev in there, is getting their boat ready. Abby's like, I can't, or Ellie's like, I can't let you leave. And Abby's like, I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to do it. And then Ellie holds the knife up to Lev and is like, yes, you will. So, which
All right,
is
come
a
on.
really cool fight. Like,
Yeah.
there's not much music. It's very quiet. It's very smoky. It's all in the water. And it's just so, like, visceral and gruesome. Like, well, not really gruesome because I'm thinking gore, but,
Yeah.
like,
But it's just gruesome in the
visceral.
feeling of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it feels like such a brutal battle, even if it doesn't necessarily show through the blood and gore. I mean, you cut up Abby a bit in this film, but after you cut up like 100 times, it just looks like the same cut anyway. But no, if you've played Metal Gear Solid 4, I know he hasn't. It's very
Nope.
much the Snake versus Ocelot fight, but with less dramatic flair, less Kojima, like, theatrics, and more just grounded, realistic, like, climax fight, right? But this is like that pathetic climax fight. Ellie's, like, probably on death's door. She's been impaled. She's gone through this journey twice. She loses 2 fingers to Abby in the fight during a bite thing. And Abby is just obliterated at this point. Like, she's been on keto for like 1 day and has just lost all this weight. And it's just pathetic and awful. And by the time that you could probably even kill her, it's the beautiful moment of Ellie realizing revenge is not going to bring Joel back. This isn't going to make things better. You're just going to repeat the cycle. Ellie takes a moment to do what Abby has not done this entire time, and spare that moment of grace to sit there and say, if I do this, I'm no better than Abby. I'm doing everything that's been done to me. And I think all in this moment is portrayed really well for her to sit back, and it's so hard for her still. And I love that it's still a challenge. It's not just like I give up. It doesn't feel like...
She's hurting. Like, emotionally. You can tell she's hurting.
Needs to kill Abby, but she knows that she can't because that's not going to do anything different. And that's, if anything, just puts Lev to create the story all over again.
And her... Again, I mean, I'm gonna keep praising them because like we just did a movie review for a movie that's tons of famous people, but they can't voice act to save their lives. Paul Rudd is Paul Rudd.
Well, Marion
Everybody
Cotillard
else-
does a great job.
I think you just like her.
I do. She's delightful.
But anyway, they're just okay. But like I bring it up in this one because they do such a phenomenal job. Whenever Ellie is sitting there, I mean, the game developers and the voice actor herself, like how like she's like huddled in on herself and is just like sobbing, like from the emotional pain and the physical pain.
So much is said without ever
good.
having to be said, like say a word about it. Like I love a scene that can tell the story visually without having to sit there and explain it to you, which you are always going to
Oh
do.
yeah, which I've said.
Don't
it's so
explain
bad.
the story, but having exactly just the emotions.
They
tell the
respect
story.
your intelligence so much in this game,
Right.
That
Which
they
it-
almost do it too much.
Which is the
because
problem, because you're talking to gamers here, and some of us are raising machines.
They killed Joel. They're lesbians.
LGBT SJWs ruined my video game, and really, it's such a minor point in so what? Ellie's
It
gay.
is.
Like the only thing.
Whatever.
The only point that Ellie is gay is
They have a little lovemaking session for like.
they get baked and then
20
hook up for a
seconds.
little bit, and then Jesse's like, "Are you guys for real right now?" Like, to be fair, like they're just smoking weed and having sweet scissor time. I don't know, but
Whatever they do.
yeah, whatever they do, I don't know. That's
All right. So game as a whole.
game as a whole.
You go first.
Not
Scores yet.
overall, I will say that I truly, truly enjoy this game. I learned to love it by the time it was all said and done. Abby's thing, after I realized that I had to keep playing her, and I was like, shit, I missed so much upgrades. Like, I probably need to play a second time just to even get her to kind of get to be a decent character. Whatever, I survived. I made it. By the time you realize what Abby's thing is doing and what it's all said and done, the characters and stuff around her still aren't super great. But Abby as a plot device for telling Joel's story, for being this opposite side, but still being a sort of sympathetic villain in a way, not necessarily sympathetic in the way that you just get a perspective. You can start to empathize, and that whole human journey of telling Joel's story, like I said earlier, I love that they did that in that way. Although, would I have loved to have more time with Joel? Yes. Would I think that Last of Us 2 would have been a pretty good idea and then lead us into 3 so we had time to learn to love Ellie, or Abby before we started
This game being
hating
3.
her? Yeah, this game could have been a 3. Like,
Yeah.
3 as in Last of Us 2.
Everybody's been saying that, and I couldn't.
It
agree
could have
more.
absolutely been. Or you needed. I really do think you needed to give us something with Abby, and that's the only like. Last of Us 1.
We needed her before she kills Joel because
Yes.
any like
Nothing
you're
matters
gonna feel-
because that's your kickoff point with that character. Other kickoff points with characters you don't like at least still have some charming banter or do something twistedly evil. Her thing is just mean. It's rude.
not cool.
It's pretty unsweet of her. Yeah, there needs to be something war room for Abby because even I remember thinking all the way until the end whenever like Abby's just this pathetic human being who really is just trying to live for Lev at this point because that's her only crutch. Even at that point, part of me was still like, I want her dead. You killed Joel. I don't care. And I feel like that's so much. I mean, again, I guess that is part of the intent as well. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like everything has more impact when you care about the characters. And part of the biggest problem with this is that my only caring for her was negative, and it wasn't exactly even a good negative. Like there were times where I'm like, I could totally leave Abby and be fine. But yeah, I'll get in my score here after. But I loved what it did, all things considered. In retrospect, when you get the full picture, everything does so much more.
That's what he kept telling me. He went through this game so quick.
Whew, took me like 2 days.
And like the when I was speaking of the night of when I thought like I was gonna play Abby and be done, and I was upset. I saw him the next day after he'd beaten it. I'm like, how much more is Abby going? He just laughed, just like,
you fool, you idiot.
and I was like, no,
You played through all your best parts of the game. Oh, you got flashbacks now.
And like you've heard neither of us complain, nor anybody else on the internet, I'm sure, about Ellie's portion.
No.
Ellie's portion is so much fun. Like, playing as her feels so good, and not for the fact that, like, her and Abby definitely play differently. But the game encourages you to play a more, like, sneakily approach, and Abby's is much more, like, muscled up, in your face. She makes pipe bombs, not Molotov cocktails.
Yeah.
She blasts and
She gets
rams.
assault rifles that does all this, and Ellie, to be fair, gets explosive arrows. Which
Yeah.
is, when I started playing through a little bit on the second time, I was going a little Call of Duty. I was just nuking those guys. I was just, come on and get me. And explosive arrows, and explosives are great. Just great. Fun time, but...
And, like, everyone had so much fun with Ellie because it's what we wanted. I would say it's like what we expected, like, and what we expect is not always like the best because but like
Star Wars fans can tell you that.
Yeah, and we didn't want that much Abby. We didn't care about Abby. I'm sorry, but the game still didn't make me care about Abby, and that was like half of the game, and that's the message it was trying to show. The message it's trying to show, of course, is that nobody's entirely good. Everybody's gray. And I got that, like, right after, like, you find out that her dad is the doctor that Joel kills. It's like, that's all I need. I totally get where she's coming from. I get why she killed Joel. That's all the reason she needs. That's all the characterization we need. And we got more and more and more, and it kept going. And I didn't want that. But the game, like, still, looking at it as a whole, has such high moments for me. Like, it hits emotional moments that the first one didn't reach for me. But the first one still reached highs, not necessarily just emotional, but like gameplay and story highs that this one still doesn't touch. Like, I'm still thinking of like all the people that you meet, like all the people that you meet in Joel and Ellie's story goes to further both of their characters and help them improve as people. All of these people I'm meeting in this is to further the theme, and I got the understanding of the theme within an hour into Abby's section. I didn't need more. I didn't need to see more, but they kept giving me more, and I was already full. I was like, stop. I don't want any more. I'm full. I'm full.
Eat it. Eat it.
And it just kept making me do it, and it didn't make the ending any more impactful for me between Ellie and Abby. The most impactful thing for me at the end was still the connection between Ellie and Joel that all of us are on board with for The Last of Us, which, again, I see Dylan's point, and we may not need a Last of Us 3, and I'm fine with that. Ellie's story's done. Please, we don't want more. We don't need more.
You put the scroll through enough. Please stop.
That's all we need. And, like, maybe in the next one, if there is a next one, like, maybe they can be seen for a second, kind of like in Your Name, which is... we didn't put that video up, did we?
Nope.
But anyway, there's, like, a little cameo of them in Weathering With You, which we do have. And, like, I like that. Like, they're just a little cameo. They're like, you like these characters. They're still in this universe, and they'll help a little bit with the story, but that's it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I want from the next one, if there is a next one, which I can't imagine there won't be, because this game it's still sold gangbusters.
Franchise. Yeah, like...
And it's got a lot of conversation.
If I'm a corporate guy somewhere, I'm already approving Last of Us 5. You know, oh, yeah, go ahead and put it out 3 more. That'll be fine. You kept doing it with Uncharted. Why not? Like,
it's just a matter of the creative people behind it, and if they don't feel there's a story to tell, I'm fine with that. I put all of my trust in them, and... Man, the voice actress for Abby, I know just recently, has been getting legit death threats.
Girl, it's a job.
Why?
Don't attack the voice actor. She's reading lines. But you're not going to attack the scriptwriter? Pick one, guys.
Like, I know, I agree. Like, why she is drawing the ire of everybody. Like, there are so many mouth breathers now that get to have a voice because of the
gamer
internet.
community and Twitter. What are you going to do? Right?
I know, exactly. And that may be shoving some people off because I'm insulting them. I don't care. Like, that girl,
I'm a gamer. We're part of the problem. But
she did an amazing job as voice acting. That's all she needed to do. She had no say in anything else that happened.
Nope.
But people are still getting mad about it. And... I don't know. That could possibly put them off of making another one, but maybe that's just, like, the corporate side is going to be too strong.
I don't know. I think if you see it, you're like, oh, I mean, no such thing as bad headlines. It's all corporate. Everybody knows about Last of Us 2, even people who don't play video games, because they're hearing about it. So now Last of Us 3 is even more marketable because it's another game everybody knows. But don't do it. Don't do it.
Stop.
Do a different IP. Listen, Last of Us is great. We didn't even talk enough about the gameplay, the visuals, all that. All that's great and excellent and beautiful. Except the weird grainy thing that's kind of over the screen the entire time of the game. Like, that part's a little weird.
I didn't notice it too much.
I noticed it in the beginning.
what you're saying.
I noticed it in the beginning and it blends away. And I think it does a good job at still keeping, like, as you're transitioning, because they keep putting this game out at the end of the generation of the game, and we're about to get PS5. Like, you could be doing more with the tech, but it's already pushing PS4 to the limit, and it does
Oh,
it
yeah.
brilliantly. All the load scenes you never even notice, just crawling through things, and then brilliantly in there.
The only time you notice, though, is if, like I did on my second playthrough as Abby, I skipped a lot of cutscenes. They hide the loading screens into those cinematics,
Yep.
which I don't even understand.
Brilliant.
but
I don't
it
know how
was
you do that.
amazing.
I thought you could only do one. My PS1 brain has never understood how you can do a cutscene and then load while the cutscene is going. Brilliant. But
Yeah,
that
you're
all
exactly right.
Yeah, all of that said and done, let's
But
wrap
we,
up with this.
I mean, I wish we would have. We've already gone on too long, I guess. But I mean, graphics obviously amazing.
Beautiful.
I still, I mean, maybe the music's a little bit more controversial. I really liked it because it underscored everything really well and was never in your face. But it's not like
It's a score.
central.
It's not a soundtrack. It's not supposed
Okay,
to be like giving it
agreed.
an identity. It's supposed to
Agreed.
just add to the scene. It's supposed to give the tone to the scene a little bit extra than what it needs to. So I was fine with that.
Yeah. Let's say graphics, audio,
The gameplay
gameplay.
is fantastic still. Like,
Yeah.
it's everything you love from Last of Us 1, and it lets you have a little bit more action when you wanted it. It lets you do both. The stealth in it was super, super cool.
Yes, it was.
I love that it, and you haven't played Metal Gear Solid, but the stealth
Nope.
felt Metal Gear Solid-y, which is great. But when it wants to go zany, it also feels very zany. And whenever you want to go nuts and blow up people with an arrow, you can do that.
And you see their parts flying everywhere.
Everywhere.
Did you did you believe that, like, it's kind of want you to know, like, these grunts are kind of people too, like they have names, they have connections with
no,
these
I like it
people?
whenever
You
they
like
kind of
that?
had revenge kill. Yeah, when they were just like Dino, Rip, or whatever. Whenever as they were shouting out names, I think that little extra detail made the biggest difference on it.
And some people were still complaining that I've seen that, like, oh, I've seen that character model before. So,
all right,
like, there's still so many that I personally never noticed.
I never felt
any
like
of
I said
same.
the same one like 50 times over. If anything, I
Yeah,
was like,
you
yeah,
noticed that.
I'd be like, it's a little resembling, probably, all things considered. They may have changed the hat color, maybe, but overall, I was too busy killing them. I really didn't pay too much attention.
Exactly,
to that.
and they look different enough.
Yeah.
That, like, I'd never noticed that, like, oh, this guy was named Tony earlier. My real is
Right.
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that part of it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the game excels in all of the gameplay stuff. It felt fun. It felt unique. It was when it wants to be so scary. Oh my god, the hospital! I could talk all day on. We didn't even talk about the hospital scene with
The monster
Abby.
demon.
Yeah, the big monster ball waiting at the bottom has been there since the beginning. I love that they even give that little hint. They're like, yeah, these were the first people infected. So then you think, oh man, if they get strong, they're kind of like vampires, like the good lore vampires. They get stronger the older they are. And they got Boulderzilla, the monster, just shredding out other like.
And there's foreshadowing, like, there's this big hole, like, awful, nasty hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And you're like, what the heck made that? And
Yeah.
then there's, like, blood trails on the floor, and you're like, well, that's to be expected.
Yeah.
But then you realize
checks out.
what
Oh.
it's from. I remember you were hyping me up for that. You're like, wait till you get to the hospital. I was like,
Bro.
I thought I've been in a hospital
No, the
before.
hospital was sweet with Abby. It feels so. It's almost like the best of Resident Evil. Whenever they actually go
Uh-huh.
really full horror into the game, this game does everything it wants to with its tone, and it nails, I think, the landings for.
But it
almost
could have been with Ellie. Like, we could have just been playing that part as Ellie. Like, it was.
Nah, because it's funner to watch Abby get tore apart by the big boulder.
Oh, did you
monster
do
thing.
that?
Oh, every time.
What did it do? I never, like, actually died
It
to
rips
it.
her arms off and arm stuff like that. It's pretty brutal, bro. Go back and play it a third time. It's sweet.
Jeez.
Oh man, yeah, it's horrific. I was like, come hug me, big guy.
I was too scared, like, both times. I was like, I'm killing you. I don't care what happens. You're not coming near me.
No, he got me on chance. Like, I admittedly, like, I'm a little friskier with Abby, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna be like
Be a little
dodging the
riskier.
last second, and then I was like, oh, dodge too slow. Oh no!
Whatever shall I do?
Whoops! I'm correcting the timeline. Which, to be fair, would have been so. And then Ellie just would have gone down there to get revenge on that thing for killing Abby, which is a sweet DLC alternate timeline.
Then she lets it go away, and she's like at the bottom, like, oh my god.
All right, scores. Let's wrap this up.
Real quick, do you think this movie's fat, thin, or perfectly fit?
I think this video game is a little fat. It's a little fat, and it's all Abby. It's
Which is contradictory because she's very fit.
she's extremely fit, the most fit person in the whole universe, I think. It's a little fat. Like, some of the stuff really needs to go on some of her gameplay stuff. I think you need to get to that scar capture scene a little quicker. I don't think you need to sit as long on the early stuff. On the later stuff, there's still moments where you're like, I'm kind of a wolf again. Oh, I'm kind of not a wolf. I'm a traitor.
I'm gonna kill them all now.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill everybody. I think they do the back and forth a little bit too long. I think they need to be a little bit more streamlined by it. The time Lev's in there and you're defending Lev, I don't think you should ever be like crossing over to the wolf side and it not going. And granted, it doesn't go too long. You go to a hospital and you get like 20 minutes of misleading them before you go in. I get it, but there's still some stuff before then. It takes a while to get there. And with Abby, it didn't give me anything to redeem her during that time. So during that time, it's miserable. It's the worst part of the game when you transition there. All the momentum's lost on the story.
Well, the 11 Yara is supposed to be the redeeming stuff.
Exactly. So that's when her stuff picks up. So everything before then,
Yep.
it could be a lot shorter.
Which-
a lot shorter.
That is just to like try to get you connected to these characters that you already hate.
Don't care. They're gonna die, and I killed them.
Yeah, and yet they're going to show you killing them. So there's even less reason for it to like care about them because you already know they're going to die.
You're gonna have a bad time. Well, I'm gonna wreck you. You're gonna breathe spores. That's gonna
Yeah,
suck.
you're going to breathe spores. They're going to like beat you to death.
Yeah, and I will.
In
get,
a really awesome scene, like that shot of Abby
Oh,
or
man.
Ellie like beating her in
yeah.
the blood. Whew.
This is a
And the
typical-
red light.
This is typically a movie review channel.
Very Kill Bill.
Yeah, very Kill Bill. Yeah,
Like
you
a
could've
wee.
Yeah,
Which
this.
you reviewed that one as well. Check it out.
Go check Kill Bill. Yeah, this is normally a movie channel, but yeah, this game is very cinematic in its own way. Not just for the cutscenes, but it is feels like one of those games that is like a 20, 30-hour movie, depending on how you play it. But I think it's brilliant, and we need to get to the scores already.
Nope, my turn. I think it's fit, but you need to take some of Abby's parts and just give them Ellie. Like I said,
Give it
the
Ellie
hospital
time?
part, like just
Oh, yeah.
make it Ellie. But if you're not going to do that, it's definitely fat, and it's because of Abby. I skipped a lot of her cutscenes. I still didn't care. Didn't care about her. I know I keep saying that, but that's like the most important part.
Sorry,
of
when
this.
it's half the campaign, and it's the most
Yeah.
objectively the most important part of the campaign for the game. Yeah, kind of important.
All right, who's going first?
You go.
Me first?
Yep.
I keep tossing up. I'm between 7 and 8, and I keep tossing it up, not knowing where to go, and I'm going to land at 7.5. Because while I'm playing the game score is lower. Because while I'm playing through that Abby portion, I just don't care. Ellie, I'm enjoying. I know why I'm doing everything. I'm enjoying the gameplay. I'm enjoying everything about it. Kind of getting to know the characters, kind of liking them. Wish I got to know them a little bit more, especially Jesse. I kind of wish we got to know a little bit
Jesse's
more
fun.
about him. Yeah. And wish I got to know more about him. But then you get to the Abby portion and it takes so long. And like during that, I want to give this game a lower score. But then thankfully the Ellie stuff comes at the end. And you get those cutscenes that you really are going to remember. Like that's why I gave this a 7.5 in the first place, is because if I'm doing it based solely on how I feel while I'm playing it, it's going to be a low score. It may be 5.5 or 6. But once I have the whole picture, and especially playing it again and understanding why everything's happening, helps it a lot. And there's those moments that I'm going to remember, and that's what's going to stick with me. I'll remember like Abby's parts as being like, I just want to get over those. I just want to skip those. And I just will remember those highlights of the Ellie and Joel the whole time. I'll remember their connection, their cutscenes, their dialogue with each other, and that's the main thing. And it's still a beautiful game. I will probably replay this game. It's a beautiful game. The audio is just terrifying when it needs to be. Voice actors kill it, and the difficulty is right where it needs to be too. I didn't talk about that earlier, but the first playthrough I did on hard, and it was very fun. I very much enjoyed it. I had to scrounge for stuff. I felt like I was being very particular.
Knifing everybody whenever you get the chance.
Yeah, exactly. And
Unless
then
you're Abby, then you just punch the shit out.
and then I played on moderate, medium, the second time. And
we call it baby's volume.
I
right?
was just blasted.
So then we started blasting.
Like,
through.
I maybe stealth killed like 4 or 5 people. I was just going around killing people, which is fine. Like, it's still like...
It's still fun.
I'm an experienced gamer, so like medium is like fine. But like I could see some people like are like, I haven't played much video games. I'll do medium, see how that goes, and that would be right for them. And also, I have to repeat what everybody else says. The accessibility options are pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Like how they can I think some blind people have played it as well.
Yeah.
That's
I don't even know how.
incredible. I have no idea, but it's really cool that they took the time out to make it accessible to people, like people that wouldn't even make that big of like a part of their sales.
Yeah, this is the most minor. I mean, blind gamers. And I'm speaking
Yeah.
blindly, admittedly, no pun intended. Probably not a huge demographic. Probably a very, very small demographic.
Because they're a very neglected demographic.
I mean, honestly, but so to put that extra effort in for that community in itself, I think says a lot for how much this game not only cares about the game itself, but and the quality of it, but how much people they can deliver this message to.
Oh yeah, but thankfully, the developers have been doing more on that, especially the Microsoft thing, like that controller that they have for like people like who can't use their hands too well is
Yeah.
amazing. I'm glad there's more strides being made that way. Maybe more disabled people will come into gaming, then they'll find this one and be like, I really want to try to get into it based on this game and all the other strides that are being made. So yeah, still 7.5 for me. So, Mr. Dillon.
I'm gonna go a little bit higher. I'm gonna go right at an 8.5.
Okay.
I feel really solid about that. Last of Us 1 on the first playthrough, I gave it a straight up 9.5, and then I went back and played
Mine's
it
a
again.
10.
and then I gave it a 10.
Oh, then's the 10?
Yeah, I got it for the second time just because I wanted to see the test of time. I never wanted to give it. I don't want to rush to a 10. 10 is a
Fair.
fine wine. You want to
I
let it
did.
air.
I like threw it a 10, and then I did the playthrough, and I was like, still a 10.
It was definitely in my top 5 favorite games right away after I played it, and then I was like, but let's see how much of a game, and it stuck at a 10. And we go over to Abby and Ellie's story and all of that, and again, I think it's easy for a lot of fans to say they didn't like Last of Us 2, but even if they love Last of Us 1, but you get two extremely different games. Sure, Abby
Very
and
different.
Lev mirrors Ellie and Joel, but Ellie and Joel's is so much more. I mean, it's just so much more grander. All the characters they bump into, it just feels so singular to their world and their story, and it's so much more endearing. And you
Very
see,
streamlined. The pacing makes
Right.
so much more sense.
you care about the characters so much more than you do on the first one. And I don't ever want to try to play the comparison game. Well, this game's great, so this game sucks. It's not the case.
This
But
is the
because it is a
sequel to it,
sequel,
though.
you do have to do some tie-ins with it. And yes, I'm sure everybody would have loved to get more Joel and Ellie's story with all that stuff, and we get that in flashbacks. And I would have loved to have a whole other journey with them. I would give 1,000 journeys with them, and I'd probably still love it, even if they're doing terrible stuff. But I think it takes a good hand to restrain back and say, okay, we don't need to keep playing. We're making the same game. It's important to give narrative the focus here. And this game is so narratively focused that it had to make these big, risky, bold moves that pay off.
They make some very tough choices with this game.
Super-
to say the least. The
super
non-linear
tough choice.
storytelling, especially.
Oh man,
Ooh.
the going back and forth on
Gamers
that.
gonna be like, "This, I haven't seen this before."
All right, but even for me, I think, all right, well, if it was me and you, if I was going to change it, do you just have it go in between? Then it feels weird. Then it's like, hey, I'm going to kill this person with Ellie, and then you get Abby. And then it's just like, well, why would I be connected? I literally just killed him 10 minutes ago. I think the difference between 10 minutes and a couple hours, admittedly, helps. It's not the biggest difference for me, but I get it. It does shift the momentum down quite a bit, but it's still a fun ride altogether. I love the characters. Abby, even after it was said and done, I love to hate her, is what I come back to saying, is that I'm like, you're a villain in the true sense of the word, but you're also just a human in this world. And you do have your purpose in everything that you did and what you stood for, narratively speaking, did such an excellent job, and I love that. Again, I cannot go praise enough. I love Joel's story in Last of Us 2, even if realistically the story is him getting donked in the head to death. But how it's told, how that's all done, is done in such a unique and interesting way that I really love it, so I have to give it an 8.5. I might go back higher on the second and third playthroughs later on in life. I'm actually playing through it the second time right now, so like, I don't know, maybe here in like another day or two I'll get up a point. But whatever, 8.5 for right now.
So, I mean, this game definitely does more of a unique thing than the first one. Because,
Yeah.
like, you've had those
Yeah.
buddy tag-up kind of games.
It's
which-
not incredibly unique. It set off a lot of like other games doing the same thing. God of War. did
God
the
of War
same-
being
Yeah, God of War's
top
like the main
one, I'm
there.
thinking of.
Right.
But
yeah.
they killed it.
Yeah,
Still.
excellent job. Nothing against God of War. God of War's great. We would do a review if you guys asked for it, but it's not really trending right now.
It's just like I wish that like unique like games like I wish I could get more behind it, but it reaches so far and almost hits that mark. I really wish it could like this is all stuff that we're going to be known after the fact. Like, oh, people didn't want so much of this, people didn't want that, but.
Sure.
I mean, I still applaud them for trying something different. I don't understand why people are getting like so attached to this game that like it feels like Neil Druckmann is going in and like stabbing you in the heart while you sleep. Like they're trying something different. I applaud that. I'm glad they're doing something different. I'm glad they're trying.
My big thing with everybody is it's like, okay, I get it. Even if you're not happy with The Last of Us 2 and you don't like the way they took it, you still have The Last of Us 1. That's still going to be a perfect game for you, and I get that's probably why
Yep.
you're upset, because you wanted this and I wanted this, but expectations is the death of reality sometimes. And when you look at it, and if you put your whole thing to hate this franchise because of 2, then you're not giving 1 enough credit. I mean, I'm just saying, go back to the game that you love. You don't have to love this game, but
Exactly.
if you do, there is plenty to love about it, and it is different in its own way. It's its own unique game, and it doesn't just feel like a carbon copy game. So anyway, that's going to be it for our review for Last of Us 2, mainly because our studio host is kicking us out. Hey, Nathan! You can make sure to subscribe to this channel, F and Movie Podcast, where we occasionally just put one-offs on video games that we just both happen to be playing. Make sure to subscribe. If you want to watch more of this content, just hit us in the comments below. Say, hey,
We
this
play a
game
lot
looks
of
sweet.
video games.
We play 1 or 2 video games a day.
Yeah,
That's not true.
that's true.
That's true. Anyway, guys, that's our show. Make sure to tune in. If you want to see us talk about a bunch of movies, you can also catch us with our hosts Mason and Nathan, who is conveniently
There's
behind
Nathan.
the
He's
camera.
over there.
He's our cameraman. But he's
He's
also
been there the whole time. He's just been drooling on himself, kind of asleep.
Yeah.
He hasn't been enjoying himself, but we have.
Not at all. But we have a whole cast. This is a movie channel primarily, I guess. I don't know. Go check it out. We have 3 seasons worth of stuff going now, currently ongoing.
It's a lot of videos. You'll have to keep scrolling quite a
A
bit.
lot of videos. Go check it out. I'll yell at this guy a whole bunch, and we'll see you guys next time for whatever content it is you tune in for. See you then.
That was actually very convenient because we really were just done.
Yeah.
Yeah.